וכי נפשי es Hashem.
Today on page 10 we're going to have a lot of fun discussion over prayer, the proper time of prayer, midrashic involved with prayer, and then the proper locations, the proper time, and then a lot of side midrashics that dealing with different minhagim, a different time, a different situations, and how to behave in the certain circumstances. So it's a page that mainly midrashic page that involve a lot of beautiful new learning. We're on page 10, 4 lines from the top of the page. Matkif la Rav Sheshet richuta lemeisar hemnaya. Yesterday we discussed the opening the belt and closing the belt, difference between Babylon and people who live in Eretz Israel in regards to seuda, to a meal. So we said that people in Babylon, they used to have a belt that hold the belly tight, and before they went to a meal, they open it. People in Eretz Israel, they didn't do it. So we said that for prayer, like the Ran tell us, if it's a mariv, some said it's optional, some said it's obligatory, or mincha, everybody said that it's obligatory. So they need to do the certain way of preparation. So he said, is that a big to do? Is that a big burden to ask a person to just open his belt? So what's the big deal if you tell a person, if you sit and eat, to just wrap himself or close the belt and prepare himself to pray? Guess what? Another option, if he take off his belt, tell him to take off his belt totally and stand and pray. So he said, beautiful answer, and he said, yes, when a person approaches the Almighty God, he have to approach it in a proper decorum and a proper dress. Mishum shene'emar, hikon likrat Elokecha Israel. The prophet Amos tell us, prepare before you reach the Almighty God. When you talk to Almighty God, you have to be ready. You have to prepare yourself in a certain way to approach God. It's not just you go there and you pray. You have to do some type of preparation. So there are a few points here. First, I remember in February, several months ago, I was in Israel, and I went to visit Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Reb Chaim Kanievsky is one of the great Lithuanian rabbi. And Rabbi Bergman, who is the grandson of Rav Shach, whenever he see my face, he never let me stand in line. In a moment, never mind that endless people waiting there, I'm the first one. So I get there, and they said, you know, he's about to daven mincha. Right after mincha, you will be the first one to talk to the Reb Chaim Kanievsky, giant scholar. So I'm standing there, and Reb Chaim said to his shamis, to the person in attendance, where is my gartel? Where is my belt? You know, this is the belt that they dress before the prayer. Now he's a Lithuanian rabbi. Mainly for the Hasidim, you all know that they have this belt. One reason is because that's the way the Kohen in the Beit HaMikdash used to do in the Holy Temple. It's like the avnet. Others say that it's like separation between the two parts of the body. But in my little understanding, Reb Chaim Kanievsky is Lithuanian rabbi, yet under his frock, in his long coat, he put this belt. The Hasidim put it outside, but he put inside. And I understand that he followed the Orach Chaim Tzadik Aleph, the code, chapter 91, that he said, and the Mechaber said it clearly, but the Mishnah Berurah elaborated. He said that someone who has the proper fear of the Lord, of God, should be machmir al asmo, should be strict to himself to wear it either inside under his frock or outside of his frock. And Tosfot here elaborate on that, and he said that ולא חייש לשינוי קיושי הקמייתא, מכאן שצריך לחזור חלציו שמתפלל. That a person should prepare himself in a certain way. And he said here that it's all in a sense of preparation, or to feel that it's like you sing God, so you have to prepare yourself. Now, so the Gemara now brings some example of how the Amoreim used to dress when they prayed to God. And we can derive a lot of practical halacha. Soon you see how. Rava Baravuna Rabbi Puznike. When this great rabbi used to go and approach God in prayer, he wore a special shoes that was very respectful shoes. You're going to pray, you're going to talk to the omnipresent, the God. So, Umetzaleh, and he prayed. Amar, the same line. Hikon likrat Elokecha Yisrael. So, Tosfot tells us that we derive from that the whole idea that we, Jewish people, excluding Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, we are not going in any form of barefoot. That's not the way we serve. Even there are certain countries and certain culture that they have this idea that standing barefoot, we basically, when we pray, we don't do that. Tosfot elaborated and he said, Machzor Vitri was a Talmud, was a student of Rashi. He said that in those days they used to wear a special coat, a special long robe, and nothing under that. So it's the issue, he called it Libo Ro'et Erva, that because there's nothing under that, you can see the private part of your body through that robe. So that's, he explained, that's the idea behind it. But Rava Shadeglime, here is the opposite way. Rava, he took away, he has a very respectful, most probably, robe, so he took that to show that he's, in a sense, not so important when it's come to serve God. He was standing in a sense like a person stand before God. The Rambam said in Ilchot Tefillah that it's a special way a person approach God. There's a lot of different minhagim, and we said it in Aramaic, Nahara Upashte, which means everyone has their own minhagim and own respectful traditions. But the whole idea is that you approach God a certain way. Ke'avda kamei mari. It's like a servant who go before the Lord. So the Beit Yosef tells us in Orach Chaim Tzadikei 95 that again everyone has their own customs. It's not an established custom, but it's a proper, show you that there's a certain decorum when you go and pray. It's not like, you know, you go and talk to somebody on the street. It's you have to be respectful talking to God. I saw many synagogues that they have a big sign, text, cell phone, all this stuff, turn it off, not vibe, off before you go approach God. I know many Rabbonim, they leave the cell phone in the office before they go to the place of worship. So that's the proper way. Amar Rav Ashi chazina leile Rav Kahana. That he used to do that. Ki ikatzara be'alma. When he saw something that created great sorrow in the world. Shadeglimei ufachach edeu metzalei. That he took away this special garment. You look, for example, the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel, they have a very respectful, very beautiful garment. So in that sense, he took that respectful garment. He wanted to show his partnership, his participation with the suffering. Amar ke'avda kamemar, a person should feel like he is a servant before his master. Ki'ika shlama, when it was peace in the world, lavish umitkase umitasef umatzlei. So then he wore this garment, respectful, beautiful, and he said, Amar ikon lokeh Israel. So in other words, it's appropriate if it's a peace in the world. So he need to wear his nice garment. Again, in honor, not for in honor of himself, in honor of the king. You go to speak to the king, you have to wear that. I remember when I was a yeshiva student, many years ago, a couple of decades ago. So I remember one time it was Rav Rosenthal. Rav Rosenthal was the Av Bedin in Haifa. So he saw a student in a yeshiva. We came there for, I think it was summer break or something. And one of the students was so hot at that time, he wore short sleeves. Rav Rosenthal went to him and he was like, whew, very strong with him that he cannot daven, he cannot pray in that sense that he sees his elbow. Right, wrong, but he was very much asking him to wear a jacket or something. Anyway, Rava chazia לרב אמנונה דקמאריך בצלותי. Rava saw great Rabbi Hamnuna that he is praying for a long time. אמר מניחין חיי עולם ועוסקין חיי שעה. This is an important statement because Marsha explained it at length and Meiri too. We value tefillah, we value prayer, we value limud Torah. Now, here is the very big difference. In tefillah, in prayer, when a person makes it long, usually, let's face it, he has an issue with his health, he has an issue with his livelihood, he has an issue of paying rent or paying mortgage, or so he begging hardly God to get it. But he said, how do you compare the value of tefillah, which is important, to the value of study Torah? So he said, you leave the transient world for, you substitute that for an eternal life. You're focusing on asking God for livelihood and things instead of focusing on something that's for everlasting, which is study Torah. How come? So they explained it, and he said, Vehu, meaning Rav Avnuna, Savar, he hold, Zman Tfilah Lechud, Zman Torah Lechud, which means that he said, what when you're praying, it's a time for prayer. It's one is not in account of the others. So as a side note, the Sfat Emet, the Ger Rebbe said that they, you hear me a lot of story about Ger. I have 5 brother-in-laws that they're all Rashi yeshivas and Rabbanim in the different Ger yeshivas in Israel. So somehow it's in a family. Anyway, so the Sfat Emet said that the Hasidim Arishonim, the earlier pious people, the Gemara tell us in Brachot, that they used to focus hour earlier in prayer. And if you remember all the discussion there in Brachot, they talking about like 9 hours. Again, we need to understand what does that mean, but 9 hours of prayer a day. So Sfat Emet said, so what does that mean when they use the word manichin ve'oskin, that they're leaving one thing? And so he holds something very sharp. He said, there is an establishment, you can say it 9 hours or whatever it is, the community establishment of the proper time of prayer. But here he speaks about someone, first and foremost, a Torah scholar. Second, that he is overextending what is already established time frame. So time frame meaning someone exceeded 10-15 minutes, but if it's a time frame, for example, just for the understanding, to the extreme 9 hours of prayer, so one should not exceed it more than what it's established at that time, even the early pious people. And something that it's alluded to our discussion, Rabbi Yirmiyah Hava Yativ Kamed Rav Chizda. The Rabbi Zera, I'm sorry. Rabbi Yirmiyah sat before Rabbi Zera. V'havu askei b'shmata. They have a discussion over halachic manners. Negal etzaluye. It was a time for prayer, meaning it was the zman to daven. V'hava kamesar heb Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah went fast to pray. Karale Rabbi Zera, so that he stood up and he stopped his study and he prayed. And he quote from the Proverbs, and he said, Mesir ozno mishmoa Torah, gam tfilato to'eva. He says, someone who stops study Torah, his prayer is like an abomination. But again, we need to understand the Rabbi says that like the Rosh and Tosfot tell us later in page 11 that that's applied to a very high level of Torah scholars, that they are whole day long study Torah. For sure he's not speaking about average person, lay people timing. So the whole concept here, he speaks about someone who's fully occupied in Torah study. So the Gemara tells us, if you remember the previous daf yesterday, in 9b, that in a certain thing, if you start, finish it. So one of the things they said, if you start a court session, then finish it. So now they ask, what does that mean, beginning of court session, or if you start already the court session? They said, "Me'matay atchalat din." When is the beginning of the court session? Rav Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yonah. Rav Yirmiyah and Rabbi Yonah have a different explanation now. Since they don't remember, so they just use the word chad. One of them. Chad Amar, one of them said, Mishayit atfu hadayanim. So, in those days, when the judges in rabbinic court were sitting there, they have a mata shchina, like fear of the divine providence. They have a great fear that Elokim nitzav ba'adat kel, that God is dwelling at the time of judgment. So therefore, because they cannot look around, they have to focus, they put the talit on the top, they cover the talit at the top of the head. So that is like the beginning of the serious session of judgment. You're talking about sometimes of very serious, life crucial situation with people. So they took it very seriously. V'chad amar, when is the beginning of the rabbinical court session? Mishiftechu ba'alei dinim, when the dispute between the two entities begin their session, beginning their expressions, that's the time of beginning of the court session. So you think that there's a two opinion and there's a contradiction, so the Gemara said, no, it's not really a dispute. Velo pligei, these two are not contradicted each other. Ha de askei ve'atu bedina, which means the first one speak about it was already preceding session, it was a court session earlier, and then the second session, it was close to the afternoon service, the mincha time, so then you call Mishiyit Atfu, when they cover the hand. Hadelo aske v'atu bedina. But the second one, it's just the fresh beginning of court session. So that's the reason why they have two different approach, because it's two different time. Rav Ami ve'Rav Asi havuyatve ve'garsei beinei amudei. It was the Beit HaMidrash, Rashi said it was like a pillars that holding the building, the foundation of the building. So these two great rabbis, Rav Ami and Rav Asi, their tradition was that they sit and study between those pillars. That was their spot that they study, either because it was a modest place, etc. But they did something that the Oradea said in Reish Mem Vav in 246, that a person should study in a humble place, not make some big appearance, and also the obligation to study in the Beit HaMidrash, in the place of studying. So what happened is, V'chol sha'ata v'sha'ata havu tafche ha'ivra dedasha. So they used to knock on the door. Soon you see what does that mean. Ve'amre ki'i kagleit ledina leol veleite. So if someone have any dispute, come and have a discussion here. So either by the Tosfot that is said that involved in the rabbinical court session, it's more important than the study Torah, or according to Khatam Sofer, that they just ran after people that basically have a dispute in order to have a session and discussion. So they said here, Rav Chizda v'Rava bar Avuna, havu yad bebedina kol yomei. So they set these rabbis and have the court session all day. Hava kachalish li bayu. They turn. Rashi explained that they just, it's too much. You remember the Torah said about Moshe Rabbeinu that Yitro rebuked him and he said, you can't do that all day long to come and sit in a court. You have to take care of things. So Rashi explained it beautifully. He says that there is a certain time for meal, and a person cannot impose himself, otherwise it turns his body to be very weak. Tana lehu. So Rav Chia bar Midifti. So Rav Chia bar Midifti teach him what the Torah said in the Exodus 18, Vayamod Ha'am al Moshe min haboker ad ha'erev, that people stood on Moshe Rabbeinu, which means everybody have his own issues, and Moshe Rabbeinu was so involved with people. Moshe Rabbeinu is human. So you tell me that he sat all day long and the only thing he does is judge people? Torato ma'atayne said, when is the time? Because we said that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses taught the Torah to people and it was transmitted orally. So if part of this time is occupied with teaching people Torah, how will be able to sit in judgment all day long? Ela, that this sentence tell you, lomar lecha, shekol dayan shedan din emet la'amito, which means that if someone will sit in judgment and he goes by the truth of the truth, and Tosfot explained to us that he is self-search and going through the truth, it has to be in the highest level with zero alternative motivations, afilu l'sha'ah achat, even for so short session, ma'aleh alav ha'katuv kilu nasal shutaf la'kadosh baruch hu ma'aseh b'reshit. It's considering like his partner with God in creation, because the whole purpose of creation is justice, to pursue justice, to involve in justice, and those people who are unscrupulous and crooks, they basically destroy the creation by their bad deeds. So we learn from the generation of the great flood that the Gemara said in the Sanhedrin 108 that the reason that it was a great flood, it was because there's tremendous amount of robbery and crooks within that. So the judge that he is basically do the tikkun, he repair all these misdeed by the people who are bad, are not honest, and he do that the truth, and he makes sure that people live in a life of integrity and honesty. So he is basically part of God creation, because God creation is to build the world properly and make the world a better place to live. That's the Tur tells us. So he said, how do you prove it? Ktiv ha'chava yomar da'am al Moshe min haboker ad ha'erev. In one place they said that everyone stood before Moses from the morning to the evening. Uchtivatam, when he speak about Genesis, we're now in Bereshit, in chapter 1, Vayhi erev, Vayhi boker, yom echad. It was evening, it was a day, one day. So he said, what does that mean? That Rashi explained that when they sit in judgment, it's like day and night. That it's like part of creation. It's night and day. It's all part of building justice to the world. Rashi also give other explanations, but we're running out of time. So what we learned so far, that the Dayan, the judge in the court, doesn't need to sit all day long. So how long you need to sit in a court session? Ad matay yoshvim badin, because sometimes it's getting long. So how? Amar Rav Sheshet ad zman suda, which means basically as soon as you see the definition, but in general it's the 6 hour of the day, 6 hours in Sharut Zmaniyot. So that's the time that the Torah scholars sit and study. So that's sit and eat. So that's the time to stop the court session and go to eat. Now bring a source. Amar Rav Chama Maikra Dichtiv. They said in the book of Ecclesiastic, chapter 10, Ilach Eretz shemalkech na'ar v'saraich baboker achelo. Wow, what you on the land that your king is like a teenager. Why? Because he eats before he sits in the court judgment, and your ministers they eat earlier. So judge, Rashi explained, it's considering like a king, because of him there's a survival of the land, right? Mm-hmm. So if he behave like a little teenager, goofy, and then he is eating early in the morning. Morning is like the 4th hours of the morning. So he said, instead of judging the people, Ashrei Eretz shemalkech ben chorim, praiseworthy is the land that the king is really a man of freedom, man of v'sarayich ba'et yochlelu, that you minister it in a proper time, which means that they don't, they are not subjugated to their materialistic need, materialism, and they are focusing on the spiritual part, need to create justice, bigvura velo b'shti, which means the Sfat Emet tells us that's applied to the 6th hour, and they do it with heroism and not in a. So they said bigvura shel Torah, bigvura in the strength of Torah. B'shti, it means b'shtiya shel yain. They involved with drinking wine, you know, especially in the earliest time. It's not something that it's proper. Now, since we talk about the time of the Seuda, Zman Seuda, the time of the meal, so we speak about different culture, different people, that they have a different time of Seuda. Tanu Rabbanan, the sages teach us. Sha'a Rishona Ma'achal Ludin. It's like the cannibals. The people who are cannibals, that's the time they eat, early in the morning. Shniya Ma'achal Listin, the 2nd hour is the thieves. Well, they work very hard all night. The Gemara said in Psachim, it's a discussion in Psachim, Tractate Psachim, page 12, there is a discussion about timing, etc. So they speak about robbers, that because they are whole night busy, right? Shlishit, Ma'achal Yorshin, people who inherited a lot of money, so they're not involved of making living. So the 3rd hour, that's the time they eat. Revi'it Ma'achal Poalim. The 4 hours is the people who walks in the morning, so then they have the break for time of eating, right? And Chamishit Ma'achal Kol Adam. The 5th hour is the hour that people eat. So they said, Ini, is that correct? V'amar Rav Papa Revi'it Zman Suda Lekol Adam. Rav Papa said that the 4th hour is the proper time. Ela Revi'it Ma'achal Kol Adam, Chamishit Ma'achal Poalim. The opposite. 4th hour is everyone. 5th is the time of the workers, you know, they're busy with the manual of physical work, so that's the 5th hour is that. So they conclude, Shishit Ma'achal Lechem, the 6th hour is the time that Torah scholars eat, Mikan Va'elach Kezorek Even Lachemet, which means it's like, it's not proper, it's bad for the body, it's not something that we recommend. Amar Abaye, lo amaran ela da'im midi betzafra, which means all what we said, the last statement is not healthy, is someone who didn't taste any food in the morning. Aval ta'im midi betzafra, but if someone have a chance to eat early in the morning, so he said, late landba. So it's not. So basically there is a Gemara in Sanhedrin, and also in Bava Metzia, and many places, Bava Kama, they say that it's a pat shacharit, that the person should eat something in the morning. We consider it a pat shacharit. For example, washing hand and do a motzi, or something in the morning that it's considering a food for the morning. And the Mishnah Berurah said that even someone ate something in the morning, the 6 hours is the proper time to eat something, not after that. But it's a big discussion among the poskim what exactly it's called the first hour. When is when you say, for example, 4 hours, you say 5th hour. Does that mean the beginning of the 4th or the end? The beginning of the 5th or the end? So that's the Mishnah Berurah have a long discussion. Now we're going back to the other subject, which is the time of the bath, going to the bathhouse. You remember we discussed yesterday that if a person should not go to bathhouse close to time to mincha, but if he went there, he should not stop. So they said, the Sfat Emet explained why we put it here. But anyway, Amar Avad Rava mitpalel adam tfilato beveit hamerchatz. Tfilah is the Shemona Esrei, is the Amida. A person can do it in the bathhouse. What does that mean? Meitivei hanichnas lebeit hamerchatz. So just word of explanation. Rashi explained to us merchatzaot shelahen in the time of the Talmud. Gimel chadarim. It was 3 rooms, one inside and one in the middle, and one. So one that the person took a shower and inside, and then he went to the middle room, and the middle room, it's all kind of things, bath over there, and then he covered himself with some type of robe that attached to his body, and then he went to external room, and he relaxed from the all this process. Sometimes, for example, you go to a very cold, and then the very hot, etc. So it is a place that you cover your body and you relax. So it's like the third room. So he said, someone entered to the external room, right? Makom shebnei adam omdim levushim, the place that people already dressed. יש שם מקרא ותפילה, ואין צריך לומר שילת שלום. In that place, a person can do Shema, and for sure, if you allow him to Shema, you can say that he can say Shalom, and he can greet each other. הוא מניח תפילין, he can put תפילין, ואין צריך לומר שאינו חולץ, that it's clearly, it's obviously, it doesn't need to take them off. Now, middle room, remember we said that it was 3 different rooms, so what about the middle room? מקום שבני אדם עומדים ערומים ולבושים. So it's a place that some people already dress up and some people not. So he said, יש שם שאילת שלום, over there it's proper to greet each other, ואין שם מקרא ותפילה. But over there you cannot say Shema, or you cannot make the Amida prayer in that place. ואינו חולץ תפילין, you know, in those days people wore tefillin all day, so that spot you cannot take off the tefillin. ואינו מניח לכתחילה. So in other words, he doesn't need to have the obligation to take off his tefillin, but however, he cannot put them down, because Rashi explained that that room is not fully a bathhouse, it's like the middle, some and some. However, if you go inside the first room, מקום שבני אדם עומדים ערומים, if there is a place that Rabbeinu Hananel said that that's the place that it's not only bathhouse, it's also a place that they have the bathroom, so then אין שם שאילת שלום. By the way, it's halacha lemaaseh that when a person in the bathroom, he should not text, he should not talk on the phone, he should not chat with the neighbor next to him, and all these things, it's inappropriate in that bathroom. I think I told you once, many years ago, I was in the Ben Gurion airport before they established a fancy big airport, and in Israeli culture, in those days they have cell phone much before in United States you hear the cell phone. I'm talking at the late 80s. So, you know, let's face it, it's a place for men to urinate. And I was standing, and there's a guy there holding 2 cell phones and talking. Hello, Yankale, חכה רגע. יוסי, אתה שומע? He's talking to 2 cell phones while he's urinating. Anyway, for sure, that's inappropriate. So he said, אין שם שאילת שלום. People should not greet each other, right? ואין צריך לומר מקרא ותפילה. So it's obviously that it's inappropriate, it's very incongruous to have any type of reciting Shema or praying, right? וחולץ תפילין, he need to take off his tefillin. ואין צריך לומר שאינו מניחם, but it's obvious that in that room person cannot put tefillin. So basically it's unlike Rava Bar said earlier. Here you see that even prayer cannot have in the Beit HaMechatz, in the bathhouse. So the Gemara responded and answered and said, Ki ka'amar Rava bar Rava, when Rava bar Rava said earlier that the person can pray in the bathhouse, be'merchat she'en bo adam, which means a place that he is by himself, there's no other people, so that's different. ואמר רבי יוסי בר רבי חנינא, המרחץ שאמרו, אף על פי שאין בו אדם. So come on, they said no. Rabbi Yosef Bachanina said that any bathhouse, regardless, even that is nobody's there. Bet הכיסא שאמרו, in a place that the bathroom, that the rabbi said you cannot pray there. So he said that's אף על פי שאין בו צואה, even a place that is no, excrement, right? So Rashi tells us that even a brand new, something that they are not even used, אלא כי כאמר רב עדה, that he said that he allowed to, בחדתי, which means you have a new development, new house, no one used it there, the bathroom and the bed, the toilet, no one used ever, right? It's a brand new, fresh, and that's the location a person wants to get there and start praying. So Rava Bar hold that's fine, because he never used. So the Gemara said, oh, wait. V'ab mibay be'al ravina, izmino levet hakiseh ma'u, yesh zimun o en zimun. Which means, if a person is an architect, he building the blueprint, he building the house, and they now they order and they designate a room to have that room a bathroom, right? So then no one used it before. It's only for future house, right? V'lo ipashtule. We didn't solve this issue. Lavu adin lemerchatz. So that question is not applied also to a bathhouse. So how Rava Bar said that it is a place that designated to be a bathhouse, you can pray. So the Gemara said lo. So basically Ravina talk only in a bathhouse and not in only in a bathroom and not in a bathhouse. Why? Dilma maybe. So turn the page. Shani beit hakiseh dim is. Rashi explained to us that the bathroom is different. Why? Because it's in a sense disgusted by people. People hold that it's something that people don't like. So even nobody use it, it's already have some type of they stigmatize that place, that it's a place that repulsive. Right. But in a bathhouse is different. It's nothing. It's not a bad connotation when it's gone. So therefore you allow that. It's like a different. Now we back to early discussion. We said en sham shilat shalom, that a person should not greet with shalom, with greeting in that place. So what is shalom? You know that God has many names, like 26 names. So one of the name of God, 72 or 26, one of the name of God is Shalom, God of peace. So he said it's not proper to greet each other, right, with Shalom, with like name of God in that place. Machsayah le Rav Amnuna mishmei de'ula. We bring a proof to that point. דאמר אסור לאדם שייתן שלום לחברו בבית המרחץ. A person should not greet his friend with shalom, peace upon you, with shalom is the name of God, משום שנאמר, because they said about Gideon, who is a judge in the book of Judges chapter 6, that when God chooses him to be the leader to save the Jewish people from the Canaanite, ויקרא לו השם שלום, Gideon call upon God, God of peace. So shalom, it means that the name of God is shalom. That's what Rashi said. So it means that shalom is one of the names of God. Ela me'ata, so if you tell me that that's forbidden, hemnuta name asur lememar beit hakiseh. People used to take an oath to each other and use the word emunah, hemnuta. So he said this is also inappropriate to use in beit hakiseh. It's like he said, hemnuta, I'll do so and so, the Meiri tells us. So it's not dichtiv hakel hane'eman. They said in Deuteronomy 7 that God is God of trustworthy, and using that term, it's like connotation of name of God. V'chi teima hachinami, that you may say the same thing, that emnuta is inappropriate to use in the bathroom. ואמר רבא בר מחסי, אמר רב חמא בר יהודה, אמר רב, שהרי לממר אמנותא בית הכיסא? Yes, can you use that language of oath in the bathroom? So they said, התם שם גופי לא יקרא אחי. דמתרגמין לקה מהמנה. So in Hebrew there are two definitions. One is called Shem Etzem and one is Shem HaToar, which means one is a anthropomorphic way of description of entities, which not necessarily the entities itself, and one is the entities. So for example, if you want to give God's attributes, you can say God expression, God attributes, it's peace. When you speak about God's actions of peace, or if you use this a title, you can use the title of peace. So therefore it's two things. Tosfot disagree. Tosfot said that the name of God, Shema Etzem, part of God itself in that sense, it's the name peace. Anyway, hacha Shem Gufei Ikre Shalom, Dichtiv Vaikra Lo Hashem Shalom, which means that it's just a some type of attribute, but it's not the name itself. Now we're going to a list of several ma'amarim. Since we mentioned Rava bar Machsayah, we mentioned few ma'amarim from him. Rav Chama, Marav, Guria, Barav. Since we mentioned his name, we'll bring other thoughts from him. It's all beautiful, but it's not necessarily connected to the previous discussion. A person that gives gift to his fellow, he needs to tell him that he's going to give him a gift. It's in other words, he should not surprise him without giving him a previous notice. He should tell him, I'm planning to give you a gift that's bringing peace and love upon people. Shene'emar, they said in Exodus chapter 31, Lada'at ki ani Hashem mekadishchem. God wants to give a gift of Shabbat. So by giving the gift of Shabbat, God sanctified the children of Israel. So God was very strict in that sense that he asked Moses to tell the Jewish people that he is about to give them the gift of the Shabbat. So again, the Tosfot tells us that's not applied to someone who gives charity. If you're giving charity to a poor person, you don't need to give him a notice in advance because it may be embarrassing. Talk about friendship. That you should know that I am the Lord who sanctify you. אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, מתנה טובה יש לי בית גנזי ושבת שמה. God said to Moses, I have a great gift in my treasure and its name is Shabbat. ואני מבקש ליתנה לישראל לך והודיע. I'm about to give that gift to children of Israel. Go and tell them. So as a side note, you may ask, why Moses? Why Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who chose to do this delivery of the gift of Shabbat? What's the reason that it's chosen for Moshe Rabbeinu? We said in our prayer, doing Shacharit on Shabbat, Yismach Moshe b'matnat chelko. That Moses is happy in his matana, in his portion, his gift, which is that he transmitted the gift of Shabbat. Why? So they tells us that the Torah tells us that when Moses went to speak to Pharaoh, at that early time, the subjugation was so cruel and so hard that they walked 24/7. And then Moshe Rabbeinu went there and he talked to Pharaoh and he said to him, look, if you have a machine, even the best machine in the world, if you use that machine 24/7, you have wear and tear, and then the effectiveness of that machine is going down very quickly because you're warning out the machine. You have to give even the machine a break. If you want these slaves to do better, you better give them a day off, so they will be more effective for the labor you ask them to do. And Pharaoh listened to Moshe Rabbeinu and he was accepted. So it's a reward Hashem gave him to be the emissary to transmit that information, that gift of Shabbat to Am Yisrael. Okay? מכאן אמר רבן שמעון מגמליאל, הנותן פת לתינוק, if someone give a bread to a child, צריך להודיע לאמו. He has to tell his mother that he gave him. I can't tell you how many times with my, God bless them, my 5 children, I used to sit in the places like restaurant and somebody, all of a sudden you see my kids with a candy or something that someone gave them, all kind of things that people gave them. Right? So you don't know what's involved, Maya Vidley. So how a person will do it, that he makes sure that his mother know he gave him this piece of bread or whatever. Amar Abaye, sha'ef lemishcha umale lekuchala. So he should put like a little oil between his eyes, or he make like a little mark around his eyes or somewhere around his face. So when he go to his mother to bring more peace among people, so the mother said, "Oh, I see something on your face. What is this mark? Small mark." Says, "Oh, this guy gave me a bread." Otherwise, the kids sometimes not even bother to tell the parents. So in this sense, the mother knows what's involved. So they ask, but nowadays there are people who are afraid of ayin hara, of evil eye, which means that if the boy recognizes that there's a little something around his eye, he come home, the mother sees it, she thinks, oh, somebody gave you an evil eye. I should take you to those people who are taking away evil eye. Well, people are, superstitious or just afraid. So how he tell his mother that he gave him this bread? So Amar of Papa sha'ef lem oto amin. So you give the boy a piece of bread with chocolate. So what do? You take a little sip of the chocolate and put it on the boy's face or around his mouth, right? So when he gets to his mother, oh, sweet boy, what is this around your mouth? So then he's forced to tell his mother that someone gave him a bread with a chocolate. So that's it means. So the Gemara asks a question. You tell me that someone need to tell his fellow about a gift. Eini, is that true? ואמר רב חנא בר חנינא נותן מתנה לחברו, אין צריך להודיעו. Opposite, that if someone give a gift, he doesn't need to tell. How is a different source in the Torah. שנאמר, it's written in Shemot, in Exodus 34, ומשה לא ידע כי קראנו פניו בדבר איתו. That Moses did not know that his face was shining when God is speaking to him. So what does that mean? That God gave him this gift of a tremendous ray of light of God, and he's not even informing. The Rashi said in the Tractate Beitzah, in 16a, that it was just like Moshe Rabbeinu was surprised to have it. So it's like one contradicts the other. Earlier we said that God told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the people about Shabbat, and here said that he gets this ray of light around his face and didn't realize. So in a place that people will see it, for example with the bread, people will see, right? So then you have to right? But if it's something that gift like Shabbat, right? That is something that is not going to be revealed. So if you don't tell him, he doesn't know. So you have to tell him in advance. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? You tell me that Shabbat is not Avida Legilui, but Shabbat de Avida Legilui. The gift of Shabbat, it's something that it's a relaxation, is a time of great pleasure. So it's a clear gift that God is revealed. So he said, no, Matan Schara lo Avid Legilui. What's the reward for not walking on Shabbat? That's something that unknown. The Torah did not tell us, when the Torah asks us so many times to observe Shabbat, the Torah did not specify what's happened. We said later in the few places in the page Kuf Yudchet 118 that God's give that person a nachala bli metzarim, great materialistic endless reward, etc. That's we derive from rabbinic understanding, but the Torah did not speak about real reward for observing Shabbat. So as a side note, what does that mean, that nachala bli metzarim, endless? So I want to share with you just one or two examples. Let's say a person have a store, and next door is a very similar store that is his competition. You ask him to close the store on Shabbat, so he feel, I'm going to lose a great income. So they promise him that he gets that income because he trusts God, he get it greatly. The place that my father was a rabbi for more than 4 decades, so it was one of those ice cream place, Glidat El Hanan. It was a very big store, and I remember as a child my father used to go to the owner who opened that place on Shabbat, and he begged him and he begged him and he begged him, and the guy said no, and each time they're making fun of my father coming there, talking to them. One time my father was like, sick and tired of that, because my father used to go, beside of being rabbi of the shul, he used to go to the stores and talk to them to close the stores on Shabbat. So he said to the guy, don't you understand that, I so many times talking to you about closing your store on Shabbat, and don't you understand that it's going to be a price tag for that? He says, what are you talking about? He starts laughing. He says, you know that I just bought a new huge motorcycle, and I'm gaining much more money over Saturday opening the store than the whole week. And he was like laughing at my father. I'm sorry to say, it's hard to say connected, not connected, just show it you a real life story that the fellow used that motorcycle just a few days after that week. And he went to one of those hills, and he just the motorcycle turn around several times, and he was end up in a state of coma. And he died later, but it was like horrific thing. And unfortunately, his wife tried to maintain that place for another couple of weeks, and unfortunately she was involved in a car accident, and then they closed that store. So I remember that story was like, as a kid, I was like shocked because I remember the whole details. Another example, next door to my father, it was a cinema, Kolnoa Amami. It was a private owned cinema. And we are very hurt and very disturbed. Every Shabbat we're sitting around the Shabbat table for the meal, and you have those trucks coming with actors and singers and out loud different show. And so my father mentioned to us one time that the Gemara said that in the end of the days, all this house of worship will turn to be a place of study Torah and prayer. So time passed, and nowadays, I'm talking decades later, it's really a very big school, religious schools. They have a cheder, they have Talmud Torah, they have a girls' schools, it's a huge building. So I always, when I visit my father, I said, it's like your prophecy come true. This was a Kol Noah, this was a place that used to be open on Shabbat and used to have all these activities. The same, by the way, in Yerushalayim. In Yerushalayim there is a place very famous called Noah Edison. It was a place that used to open on Shabbat and used to have all these activities on Shabbat, and the rabbis were very strong. And now you see a very ultra orthodox development of a residential building in that spot. Anyway, now I need to give a word of introduction because it's a midrashic, but we need to understand it. The time of the Beit HaMikdash, it was the Kohanim. So the priests, the Kohanim, they have no property. So since they have no property, so they depend on people. So every fellow needs to give 24 matnot kuna, 24 gifts to the Kohanim. For example, the firstborn of the animals go to the Kohen. Turmot u'masrot, the tithe, needs to go to the Kohen. Even behemat chulin, just a regular behema, regular animals that you slaughter, you need to take zeroa, lechayim, and kiva, the 3 items of the animals, and give it to the Kohen. By the way, it's a practical halacha that if you're slaughtering animals, this part you need to give it to Kohen. So that part, when the Kohen get that gift, it belongs to him. So he can do whatever he wants. He basically can give it to someone as I don't know, it's a barter, it's a gift, it's whatever he wants, it's his. An example, you have those goats, it's called rechelim. So if you have 5 of them, so you have to give the cotton, you cut the hair around the body, you cut that cotton, right? So you cut that cotton and you give it...
Wool.
The wool, thank you. And in every 5 you cut the cotton and you give it to the Kohen, and the Kohen basically can take it and can sell it to someone who can give it to Israel, because there's no kedusha, there's no sacredness in that gift to Kohen. So now we go to our sugya and you see how easy it is. Rav Chizda Abnakid B'yedei Treit Matnata de Torah. Rav Chizda was a Kohen. If you remember, we studied in Brachot about 80 families of Kohanim that marry other Kohanim, and says that there's 2 that marry Kohanim. In short, Rav Chizda was a Kohen. So he received the gift for some who slaughter ox, and he gave the gift to him as a Kohen. So you have this gift, when he lived where? Live in Babylon, which is, by the way, another, because it's a question, if you are outside of Eretz Israel, do you have the same obligation of giving a tithe, the same as Eretz Israel? It's something that we said in different locations in the Gemara, Hane Klat Savei. It was 3 elderly people that said that bring a oral halacha that said matnot kuhuna, it's only in Eretz Israel and not the Chutz La'aretz. For example, nowadays you don't need to bring, you may either make a partner, a non-Jewish partner, or other resolution, but you don't need to give. In any case, he hold this gift of Chizda, and now he's saying, Amar kol man de'atev, Amar lishmat achad mishmei de Rav, yavinan yalei. If someone give me something that Rav said, something new learning, something new, I'm giving him a gift. This was probably very expensive. You talk about tongue, you talk about part of the meat that is expensive meat that he gets received as a gift to the priest, to the Kohen. Amar lo Rava bar Chasya. Rav Chasya came to Rav Chizda and he said to him, Hachi amar Rav. This is what Rav said. I remember something, and he turned that it was new for him. If you give a gift to your friend, you should tell him in advance, because God told Moses to tell the people that I am God who sanctified you. So that's the same we learn from that the person will give a gift to his fellow, he needs to inform him in advance. Oh, Rav Chizda was so happy. Yahavni alei. He gave to Rabbi Machsayah the gift that he just received. These pieces of the ox, he gave it to Rabbi Machsayah as a gift. Amar, Chavivin alach shmatach de Rav kulei. You know, he gave me such an expensive gift. This learning from Rav, you love it so much? Amar le'ein. Rav Chizda said yes. Amar le'i. So I'll tell you something. Hainu damar Rav. This is what Rav said. Milta alveshu yakira, which means if you take a fur coat and you go to people who live in Santa Fe in Arizona in the summertime. So what do they do with that? They don't bother. But if you go to Alaska and below zero and you try to sell a fur coat, so you know, when it's very cold, people pay sometimes double, triple when they need it. So it means, in a sense of the moral and the allegorical here, that learning something from Rav, it's for you, it's like expensive clothing. That it's such a great appreciation and need. Amar lei, Amar Rav Amar Rahachi. Is that something that you learn? This last statement you learn from Rav. So he said, "But what you tell me now, it's even better than before. What you tell me now, a second thought. If I have another set like that, I'll give it to you as a show appreciation." It's also, you learn that Rav Chizda was very poor, and Marsha asked a question. So why the second one is more important to me than the first one? So he explained that the first one is applied to everyone. The second one is a personal message to him that he appreciated in such a level. It's in a personal level, and that's the reason why he was so thankful. Let's conclude. The same names, just bring a different name road. A person should not show favoritism from one son or from one child more than the other. So because it was a favoritism that expresses in Shnei Slaim in two, what is Meilat? Meilat, you know, when you speak about some type of curtain from animals, from this goat or sheep, so you have a different one. There is a one that can use, but if you take under the throat, in the neck of those animals, that's in a high quality. So if it's called Meilat. So Shenatan Ya'akov Yosef yoter milishar banav, because Jacob gave to Joseph more than other children. You remember that story in the Torah. Nitkanu bo echav, his brother was so jealous. V'nitgalgel lavav yardu avtem Mitzrayim. It turns that because of that terrible situation, our ancestors end up in slavery in Egypt. Everybody jumped on that. And they said, first of all, the Maharsha tells us that that's in the language just an exaggeration of Shnei Slaim. It's just exaggeration. But another point is that everyone asks, We all know that God told Abraham that your descendants is going to be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. So what do you tell me that because they are jealous, they end up in Egypt? So Tosfot said here something really fascinating. He said, Inui kol kach, which means he said that it's like atonement for the sin. It was a certain level of slavery, but the level of hardship of slavery, which basically if you look at the net of the 210 years that they're in slavery, it was 8 years of harsh slavery, or the whole circumstance that they enter, that was atonement for that. And he said, another point here, we said in Agadah that it was the two children, Jacob and Esau. So to Jacob we have slavery in Egypt, and Esau received the wealth of Har Seir, the Mount of Seir. So what does that mean? So the rabbis tells us a very important lesson. They said that Jacob needs to go to Kur Hituch. He needs to go like you're planting a seed and it's a process of decay. They go to the ground, they decay, but eventually you have a gorgeous tree or gorgeous flower. In order to receive the gift of the blueprint of life of Torah, a person needs to go to the Kinyanei Torah. What is Kinyanei Torah? The Mishna said in Pirkei Avot that is a 48 stages. A person needs to struggle, needs to wake up 5 in the morning, right? Needs to go to study Torah, and it's not, but he make himself an Eved Hashem, he make himself as a servant of God. So he gets the reward of Torah, which is everlasting gift. Versus in the life of Esav, life of vanity. So what do they have? They have the materials, but they never go further behind the material world. They stay there with the world of emptiness. Versus Yaakov, that growth in learning all the times, which is a huge difference between Yaakov and Esav, between Jacob and Esau. So Rashi here even said something deeper, and he said, תלמידי רבינו יצחק הלוי מצא לקטון פסים סביב פס עליון נתן מילת ולא כל הקטונת. He said, question, Jacob, the great of the great, one of the ancestors, why he did it? He doesn't know that he shouldn't show favoritism to one child more than the others. So they said that he basically gave the garments to everyone, the same thing. The only different way is that when he has this sharvul, he has this part of the in the garment, so it was milat. So that small part have this milat, this high level of the cotton in his part of coat, which is a very small, tiny things different between that garment and other garment. And it's the lesson here to show you that when it's come to jealousy between even brothers, even the smallest things like little meilat, little something, it's already create enviness and jealousy. Conclusion. ואמר רב בר חסי אמר רב חמא בר גויה אמר רב לא למחזר על המבישה שירתה קרובה שמתוך שהיא שירתה קרובה נבותה מוטים. So you have Rashi Klomar, and please read in my book Klomar, it's elaboration on that, but basically Rashi said here that a person should go to a city relatively new or new city and dwell. Why? Because there is a level of accumulation of sin. So if it's a punishment when you have a decree against something, cities, so the Satan don't evaluate righteous, wicked. He just create crisis. God forbid when it's a hurricane, earthquake, tornadoes, or whatever. God forbid things like that. He doesn't look righteous or wicked, destroying. So he said the person should look for a new city. So Rashi explained here with the Klomar, what does that mean? Ir Chadasha, like a new one. שמתוך שהיא שבתה קרובה עוונותיה מועטים. So God basically punish a city when they repleted, they fill up the amount of sins. So if it's a new one, it's relatively small. How do you know it? You remember the story of Lot and the angels when he said to Sodom and Gomorrah, שנאמר, they said in Genesis 19, הנה העיר, הנה העיר הזאת קרובה לנו שמה והיא מצער, מה היא קרובה? One Lot used the word Zohar, that is close by. Ilema krova de mikrava vezuta. So maybe you say that krova meaning that is close. That he said that it says no. Ve'haka chazulei. The angels can see that by themselves. Ela שמתוך שישיבתה קרובה עוונותיה מוצרים. מכיוון צוהר was dwell after Sodom. So it's not going to destroy together with the Sodom because the sins upon that city it's less accumulative, it's less than the sins of Sodom. Amar Ravina Makra. Rabbi Avin asked, how do you know that Zohar was dwelled much later after Sodom? Dechtiv imalta na shama. He says that I'm going to that place, it's called Zohar. So, or another option, Begimatra 51 Ave. If you take the Nun and Aleph, Nun it's 50, Aleph it's 1, so it's together 51. So it means that Zohar is 51-year-old city. Ve-shel Sdom 52. And the years of Sodom was 32. Right? So it's a lot of explanation how you count those years. We don't go there. Rashi involved in the explanations. You're welcome to read the Rashi. It's beautiful. Veshalvata. So how many years Sodom was a time of quiet, like Ezekiel said in 16, that is a quiet of Sodom. Kaf Vav 26. We are on page 11, just a few lines on the top of the page, 3 lines. Dichtiv, it's written Bereshit in Genesis 14. 12 shana avdu, the 5 kings, including the king of Sodom, they serve at Gedar LaOmer, the king of Elam. U13 shana maradu, and 13 years they rebel against him. Uv 14 shana. So if you count all together, it's 26 years that Sodom was quiet, was peace. So together, all together, it's 52 years. So you see here that it's all together that's the number of years. But Rashi disagrees. He said it wasn't because of 13 years of rebelliousness, etc. But we're not going to Rashi yet. We just concluded that's one of the main root of Rava Machsayah in the name of Rav Chama Bar Guya on Rav. Today we have a lot of practical halachot. One is the idea of chovat chagirat avnet batfilah. A person should wear the gartel, the avnet, while he is praying. So here we have the Bet Yosef and the Rabbeinu Yerucham, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 91. They said one should wear a belt during prayer, even if he has an additional barrier between his heart and his nakedness, because they said in Amos, prepare to greet you, God, nation of Israel. This is, the Magen Avraham said that this is also custom of those with Kabbalistic tendencies. But the whole idea, Magen Avraham say that one who does not wear a belt all day is not required to do so. That is basically the Ashkenazi custom, that they said if you don't wear the belt all day, you don't have to. But again, Nahara Nahara Upashte, everyone go by his minagim. But for sure it's something nice. Rami Puzmekeu Metzalei. So they done expensive sock and pray in a place where it's a customary to stand before an important person while wearing socks. One must wear socks during prayer. In a place where it's a customary to stand barefoot even before great people, one is permitted to do so even in prayer, as the custom of Rav Huna. That's the Orach Chaim 91. So they said here that it's proper to recite the Amida prayer with one hand placed over the other while standing in awe and reverence before God. In general, one must conduct himself in accordance with the local custom for standing before God. That's the Magen Avraham. One hold his hands in this manner to show his deference to God. That's the Taz. Some say that one should hold his hand in that way only during the time of suffering. However, during peaceful time, he should adorn himself in accordance with the custom of Rav Kahana. And he wrap himself in prayer. The custom of the sage to wrap himself in important garment and pray. That's the custom of Rav Kahana and the same location, Shulchan Aruch. Now, from where it's considering the beginning of the trial, if the judges had already been engaged in judgment, which means they already preside over a different trial beforehand, and then the trial begins when the litigant begin to articulate their claims. If they did not preside over a different trial beforehand, it begins when the judges wrap themselves in the prayer shawls in the talit. So according to our custom, that judges do not wrap themselves in prayer like in talit. The beginning of judgment is when they take their seats with the intention to begin the trial. How long they sit in trial? So the court is in session, the rabbinical court in session, until the end of the 5th hour of the day. Others say that it's 6th hour, etc. But it's a time of eating, so they need to stop and eat. Next, reciting sacred matter in the bathroom. Important halakha we study today. The room in a bathhouse in which everyone is dressed does not have a legal status of bathroom. Therefore, it is permitted to recite sacred matter there. In the room where generally some are dressed and some are not, it's permitted to greet with others with shalom, but is prohibited to recite passages from the Torah, prayers, blessing. The Rama said, however, contemplating passages from the Torah is permitted. In the room where everyone is naked, it is prohibited even to greet others with shalom as the Tosefta. So basically speaking in the bathroom or texting, it's a problem. The same applies to makom she'eno mechubad, if it's a place that is repugnant. With regard to reciting sacred matter, the legal status of bathroom or a bathhouse without partition, even they are clean, is the same as the dirty. But if it's a new bathhouse, one may recite sacred matters in a new bathhouse in which no one has ever bathed. So that's the Mishnah Brura. So you see, in conclusion, that there is a certain decorum in those places. Now, we said that that's the last halakha of today, very important. Favoritism. Le'olam al yeshane adam bno ben abanim. In order to avoid inciting strife among one's children, one's sons, he should not treat one son differently, even slightly, from his other children. That's the Rambam, Ilchot Nachalot, chapter 6, and Tur Choshen Mishpat, 282.
es Hashem